The following transmission is a conversation with Bishop and Torn, former members of the writing team for Fallout Nuevo Mexico. Having been on the podcast before, Bishop was able to shed a bit of insight into the Nuevo Mexico project. Now both he and Torn have come on to speak more about the mod, both the grand scale and the inevitable end of this ambitious project. Over the course of our conversation, we'll talk about the stories that were left on the cutting room floor, the New Vegas community's reaction to the mod's cancellation, and how Fallout the Frontier might help to pave the way for the next great thing. I am follower Toshi, and this is the Atomcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow for future episodes, and consider subscribing to our Patreon for early access to the newest uploads, to help keep episodes ad-free, and to help improve the quality and frequency of transmission. As always, links to our Patreon, as well as guest socials, can be found in the description. And be sure to leave a comment recommending creators that you'd like to see as future guests. Without further ado, Bishop and Torn. So one of the downsides of doing podcasting sometimes is that in certain situations, something goes wrong, the audio gets corrupted. In this specific case, we've had a past guest on, Laura J. Arts, and I don't remember if I mentioned anything of it in the actual interview, but we did have to redo part of the interview for that because we'd lost some audio on that as well.
Oh,
Yeah, it was disappointing, but the part that we had to replace came out a little bit better
all right. It's
for
not
it.
bad.
But in this specific instance, the loss of the original audio was a boon, because obviously we had Bishop, who's been on the show before, but in a lot of the detailing that he went into, he included an individual named Torn, who is another modder, another writer in this specific instance. Helped him to write a lot of stuff that he was writing, or Bishop was writing for the Fallout Nuevo Mexico mod. So whereas previously we only had one voice, Bishop's, now we have two. We have Bishop and his co-writer on his segment, Bishop's segment of the Fallout Nuevo Mexico mod project for Fallout New Vegas. Torn, since we've had Bishop on before and we know a little bit about his history and his backstory and stuff like that, let's start with you. I'm going to throw you probably the hardest hardball question I can throw at anybody right out the gate. Which is your favorite Fallout game? And keep in mind, there is a right answer.
Why was you able to do this so quickly and so fast? I gotta be honest with you. I did not start playing Fallout until Fallout 3, and I grew to love that game. It is not my favorite. Um, I played New Vegas, and I gotta be honest with you. At first, I absolutely hated it. Absolutely hated it. I did not understand why they changed certain things. Played 4, and then had the light shone upon me and realized that it's Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas is my favorite one. I've tried playing Fallout 1, I've tried playing Fallout 2, and they've got their own vibe. I just don't get the combat system. It just doesn't click for me. But for me personally, the writing, the references, the comedy, it's New Vegas for sure. It's the best one for me.
When
Sir.
yeah, the same for you, Bishop.
Oh, yeah, 200%.
Yeah,
Not even
easily.
under debate. Absolutely.
I figured you'd say the same thing, because I think that's pretty much what you espoused in your previous interview on the podcast. Plus,
Definitely.
you're working for a mod for that game, so it's like, oh yeah, I hate New Vegas. And like, all right, that
Yeah.
draws some contradictions there. You said that originally, you like, you really didn't like New Vegas, which, speaking as somebody who, just like you, Fallout 3 was my first Fallout game. I didn't have the same sort of reaction to New Vegas. Reflecting on it specifically, there's a lot of things that are very sort of like similar to Fallout 3. I think a lot of people usually compare in sort of like uh, a derogatory term. A lot of people refer to Fallout New Vegas as sort of like a DLC for Fallout 3, which is like I can see it, but it takes a lot of the wind out of the game's sails for a lot of the things that it was able to do both story wise and on a technical level. But when you specifically were originally going in to Fallout New Vegas from Fallout 3, you said you didn't like it at first. What was so offensive off jump?
I felt when I first started that I had a really like strong understanding because I had played other Bethesda games of how my characters and things should be built, like how things I should be able to do, and like how things should be reacting in the world to me, and like the karma system had already been like really ingrained in my mind that this is going to matter, right? Come to find out, some of these systems don't matter at all. Completely changes the way you play, and you're way more role playing now than you were in three. In three, I felt like you can kind of just kind of run and gun that really. Um, Even though VATS in that game is like absolutely necessary at first because there was a problem with the sites in that game. I don't know, just something about it at first rubbed me the wrong way. Like I just didn't click with the role playing element of it at first. But as I started to get really deep into it and started to really fall into the story and let that character like become itself on your playthrough as you do, right? You start to figure out what this character is about. I started realizing, wow, I can really become more niche and really spec out this way, and I'm not having to just pick heavy guns, just one thing, or just having to spec out and like I can really be doing some really interesting things here. And there's way more because they took out the karma system. There's more nuance in its writing. It's way more. You could do way more with it, and it was kind of naive to just start off with it. I just had a bad taste in it for some reason. I just can't really put it into words, but it took a while for it to grow on me. It did not grow on me overnight. It took many, many hours of playing it, but I'm glad I stuck with it.
Do you think that those sort of like limitations on like a technical level as they relate to like gameplay and story, do you think Bethesda still has those shortcomings with some of their newer games? Like obviously, Fallout 4 in the interim since New Vegas, Fallout 4, Skyrim,
Yeah.
Starfield, stuff like that. 70 I'm leaving we're going to leave 76 out because that's sort of like a different kind of game. It's an online MMO experience, different from sort of their standard single player experiences. If you want to lump in and make comparisons to that, like absolutely feel free. I'd love to pick your brain a little bit on this. But primarily when it comes to like the core single player games, Fallout 4, Skyrim, Starfield, do you feel like they've like stuck to their guns, evolved a little bit? How do you feel they've come since Fallout 3?
In some ways, I feel as though they are taking a lot of our player choice and agency out of the game in their writing. And Fallout 4, everybody complains about the dialogue system because every answer is yes, but with slightly more catty attitude.
Oh, yeah,
There's
like
never
the
no.
like the speech check stuff, or the limitation to the four different options.
Well, no, it's not even the four different options. This is like when you really peel it back, all the options are all yes.
Mm,
You don't get a no. In a lot of
Hmm.
instances, even when you say no, he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, whatever, I'll still do it." You're still being forced to take these paths that me as a different kind of player. Like, say if I was doing a run where I'm kind of indifferent to A, B, or C, it's still going to make me do these things and interact with these people in the same way. Whereas New Vegas didn't you could just completely bypass people, completely bypass instances. Older Bethesda games, especially, you could just kill off certain people, just wipe them. You could just take them away from the story and just continue on. In these newer ones, you have essential characters that you can't just remove from your plots. You can't just do things around them. You have less agency. Um, I'm not saying that you should always want to be playing a character that is necessarily evil, but the ability to be like, nah, man, I really don't want to do that. Screw you. Uh, is nice. And I just don't feel like in the newer games of Fallout 4, even especially 76, if I can touch on that, being a raider in 76 does not feel like being a raider whatsoever.
Yeah.
We could get really into that, but I don't. I played a lot of 76, and I have really strong opinions on it. Um, but I just think that as the Bethesda has become more mainstream, they've kind of taken out a lot of those weird little, almost like Wild Wasteland choices and things that you can actually make, and just kind of made it more accessible to like people who just kind of like skip through the dialogue as fast as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's good looking at it from that perspective specifically, because I do feel like compared to like I always go with Fallout 3 because, Bethesda didn't technically make Fallout New Vegas, so there's a difference in comparison when you're talking about approach specifically,
Mhm.
design, and those sort of things. I feel like with Fallout 4, it was sort of like as you said, they were streamlining it a lot, or streamlining it a lot. They were trying to make it a more story focused game. I think that was an experiment that in some ways succeeded, but in a lot of other ways didn't work out the way they kind of thought that it would, or thought that it might. In one of the things that I remember with Fallout 76, the dialogue specifically, is everybody was like super excited when they switched back to sort of like a Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas era, where there was like multiple speech options instead of just four, and more so specifically there wasn't a voiced character, which, I mean, for an online MMO, kind of a little bit more difficult to make everybody voiced character, and still have it feel like there's an individuality to each person. um but
Mhm.
with with Starfield specifically, I feel like they're kind of like trying to do both at the same time, but still have very, hopefully anyway, learned a lot of lessons from a lot of the failures of Fallout 4, or maybe not the failures, but like the down, the more so less well received parts of the story. Obviously, compared to a lot of other games out there, it's not great, but it's interesting to see how Bethesda's evolutionary arc sort of, bends and curves to the response of the gaming population.
Right, right. I don't know. I didn't play a lot of Starfield. I got with it at first when it very, very first came out, and I have a pretty decent rig, and I was struggling to play it. And Todd taunting me about buying a new rig when I had just bought one kind of soured me on the experience. And so I played a little bit, and the gameplay was fine for what it was, but I wasn't immediately compelled to continue the storyline for whatever reason. Also, I didn't really care for the space travel, so I don't really have strong opinions on Starfield other than it didn't appeal to me. But if that's the direction that they're going with, and hopefully they learned that um, it doesn't matter the volume of the stuff that you have in your game. What matters is the depth, because I feel like I've heard from people who have played Starfield that yeah, it may have like there's so many planets to explore, etc., so many places to go, but there's nothing to it. There's no substance. There's nothing to do. It's weird. It's an empty void, but with lots of bright lights, is what I've been told.
Which
But
is
that's
like,
somebody else's opinion, not mine.
I mean, I like it's
But I can
accurate
kind of
in the
understand
sense
it.
that it's like space, but
Yeah,
in the
like
terms of like gameplay, it's kind of both, like in the realism of it being, more of like a space simulation kind of thing, but also in a lot of the like quests and missions and presence of characters and factions and such.
right. But I don't know. I always keep the idea in the back of my mind when I'm doing something or when I'm playing something is like, is this fun? Um, and I don't know. I just with Starfield, I just felt like you go to a planet, you would get down, you would explore it for like 10 minutes. There's nothing there, and you get back in your ship and you do it again. And I'm like, is this fun?
Yeah,
Uh, Personally, for me, no.
yeah. There were a lot of people who also agree, which is, I think, It's like me personally, I see a lot of potential in Starfield, but it is definitely one of those more controversial kind of games based on what Bethesda has intrinsically put out over the years. So yeah, we're definitely on the same page on that one. Um, Speaking of fun, Bishop, uh,
Mm.
tell us tell us more about Fallout Nuevo Mexico. What was for the uninitiated in the audience who didn't watch the last interview with you? Um, what was Nuevo Mexico? What was it all about? What was it going to be? What was it planned? What was the vision?
Well, I wish I had 100% definitive answer for you. Whatever Zap had planned, whatever his grand vision was, he didn't quite share it in its full capacity with me or anyone else. So it's one of those things where the project and the story perhaps did have a really solid direction. I just didn't know about it, or no one really knew about it. So tough to say where it was going because it changed so much over the years. When I joined the project, there was very little direction on where this project was even, what direction it was going. There was a lot of Legion involved, and there was a lot of garbage, I would like to say. There was a lot of boring garbage being thrown around, and so that's when Zap and I decided to wipe the slate clean, more or less, and kind of start the narrative over from scratch. There were assets made, and there were certain towns that were built, and certain things that were scripted, and so in the game engine. So he didn't get rid of that or change any of that. But basically, whatever paint was over this project, we stripped it and we repainted it, or we were trying to work on repainting it. And well, it was. I know that if it kept going, it would have been fun. It would have been a fun experience. To get back to your question, um, I would. When you look at the trailers that were put out, it looks like something that you really want to. It looks like something that you really want to play. And Mozap did a very good job of directing all of that. He edited and threw together everything for the trailers. He did that all by himself, and so he did a very good job of it. He did a very good job of that. The trailers were very well received, and it got a lot of people excited, including me. And tough to say what would have actually been the final product in terms of actual combat. Me personally, I prefer the vanilla combat. I don't, not that it's perfect by any stretch. It's very flawed, but I don't use any combat overhauls. And so I think ultimately that's what the project would have done. It would have stayed vanilla in terms of combat. I know there was dual. He used a dual wielding mod in the trailer, but honestly, I think that was just supposed to make it more flashy and a little more appealing.
What was
But I
sorry, go ahead.
Hmm? No. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask on that because you mentioned like that it was going to be different. It wasn't going to be vanilla style combat. What was the? Because I mean, obviously you said like there was going to be dual wielding when we saw that in the trailers and whatnot. But like, what was how different was combat original? Maybe not originally, but like how different was combat envisioned to be from the main game?
Well, it wasn't really discussed. That wasn't something that there was no like big focus on that. If there was going to be anything overhauled, it might have been the enemy NPC behavior and how they functioned in combat.
Mm.
Uh, instead of just them standing there or the basic strafing or hiding behind a mailbox or some crouching in the middle of the street, we would have we would have tried to make something a little more intelligent than that, but it wasn't. It definitely wasn't on the top of our list. It was something that probably would have been worked on towards the very end of production if this project made it that far.
Like a stretch goal
Oh,
kind of thing?
Right, right. That's the only thing that would have been changed. You know, nothing crazy like cars or rideable mounts or nothing like that.
Well, we talked about that once, but
Oh,
we
that's right. We did with the Giddy Up Buttercup. That was your
yes, we
idea.
did. Yeah,
That was
we
your
had an
idea.
idea. Yeah, so like, sorry to interrupt, but at one time we had an idea for a character that would ride a Giddy Up Buttercup that was modified to have slightly longer legs because that character's father used to work at the Giddy Up Buttercup factory, and he built one that his daughter could ride, and the legs would extend upwards. And she just keeps riding it. It's not like it's the original person riding machine now. It's been overhauled, and so they ride this Giddy Up Buttercup up and down a small town as they patrol it. And so they're basically like a sheriff on a horse. It would have been a really unique and dynamic thing to look up and see this person and be like, "Yo, you're on a freaking horse! Holy crap!" You know. Uh, and there were even some set pieces where we had an idea that we would use the we would not be a let we wouldn't let anybody else use this animal or this Giddy Up Buttercup, and we would use it in a scenario where it would become destroyed.
Mm.
So that way you would either have to help her rebuild it, or you would use it to like blow a wall in an enemy defense that you needed to do at a time, so that way you can gain access to enemy stronghold or blow a wall through something. There was a lot of different ideas with it because Giddy Up Buttercup is, all right, if I remember right, it's got a fission battery on the inside. The thing will explode if you shoot it. Uh, and so there were a lot of funny ideas at the time.
What
And that was one of
others?
them.
What other sort of ideas did the mod have that were either unique to it as a project or hadn't been seen either very often? Well, I guess more so underutilized when it comes to other mod projects.
Oh boy, where do we fucking start, man? I mean, that was basically all of it.
Yeah, the whole
If I'm
thing.
being honest, like all of it. Everything that we came up with, we were trying to do same, but different. You know, we were trying to bring something new, use the same blueprint formula, but bring something new and interesting and fun to play. So that was like our golden rule that we try to follow. So, I mean, there was so much that we created. So much.
Uh,
Like what? Come on, Bishop. You know you can't just say that
No,
and
I'm
then
just
not say
figuring out
nothing
where
to
to
follow.
start. I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out where to start. Torrin, do you want me to
I'm
start with the stuff
yeah,
that
which
I
you
came up with before you came
yes,
onto the project?
yeah, that would be great because
All
all I
right.
did was help feed into your stuff. So my stuff doesn't exist without yours.
Alrighty. So, let's go back to when Zap and I kind of wiped the slate clean, and it
Mhm.
was kind of just him and I working on the meat of this project. I'm not talking about outfits or anything or assets or anything like that. We had people for that stuff, but in terms of story and writing, for a good while when I first came onto the project, it was um, it was just Zap and I doing those things. And so let's see here. Let's see here. I got quite a bit. I got quite a bit of files. So, I came up with an idea to have. We needed factions, right?
Mhm.
We needed more factions. One of the factions that I came up with was called the Clockers. And they were supposed to be your stereotypical cartel Mexican baddies. You know, that was supposed to be the general vibe of them. Um, and they were, weapon and drug dealers, slavers. They were the bad guys. You know, they would try to. They weren't like disciplined like the way the Legion was, but they were supposed to be the gangsters. You know, they were supposed to be the guys who would take without asking. No, they didn't require anyone's permission. If they wanted it, they took it.
Mhm.
And order wasn't really in their plans. It was kind of just waste anyone that gets in the way and bleed everyone dry until they're no longer useful. That was the general vibe of that gang, and they would have controlled a solid amount of the playable regions that we had for the hub spaces. And so I came up with a ranking system. So you would come across, of course, higher ranked people within the gang that would be tougher. They would be able to take more damage and also deal more punishment. They would operate through this tunnel network called the sugar tunnels. And basically, the player would be able to navigate through these. It'd be a pretty claustrophobic experience. It wasn't big and open like the Fallout 3 metro system, but the same idea was there. Like, let's have something like the metro system, but make it different and probably a little easier to traverse, a little more convenient. Since this mod was going to operate out of hub spaces and not be one gigantic open world, it would be a means of a solid means of travel without fast travel. So it would be, I suppose, an alternative immersive way if you wanted to fast travel between different sections and different biomes of the map. So in these sugar tunnels, you might run into some clockers. You might run into some unfortunate souls that wandered down here by accident as well. So you would be able to come across a number of different things in these tunnels. Not random events per se, but strategically and properly placed things like a dead body or a series of notes that you could follow of someone's story, an NPC that was trapped down there.
The sort
Perhaps
of like environmental storytelling kind of thing.
Oh, right, right. That's a simple way to put it. Yes, yes, exactly. Um, Apart from that, that was uh, that was one of the factions I came up with, and the second one, it was called Sharks Gang. We never really came up with a proper name for them, but Sharks Gang kind of just stuck. It didn't really feel like it needed more on that end. It didn't need some cheesy name. Didn't need some. They didn't need a label like that. And so uh,
Well, what you
we
gotta
made
what you gotta do is you gotta call them the curb sharks in
right, yeah,
obvious
nothing
a very
ridiculous
obvious
like that.
homage to the Street Sharks show from the 90s. You remember
Yeah,
that?
Yes. Yes.
Just pull something just obscure out of the ether and be like, this is it. Include the reference.
Yes.
right, right.
There was many times we did that. There was one time I was trying to put the Dirt Man into this.
That's
the
right.
the
I remember
Dirt
that. Yeah.
Man?
Oh, you don't know the Dirt Man?
No. Are you about to
Oh,
tell me some scary urban legend that's gonna make me fucking stay up until 3 a.m.?
no, 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 no. We're guys. We keep a
Oh.
little dirt under our pillows for the Dirt Man in case he comes to town.
Yeah. Totally.
I'll send you the meme. I'll send you the meme. Once you see it, you'll be like,
Like, oh my god, he's right.
I'll have to send it to you.
Yeah, sure.
Once you see it,
Totally.
once you see it, you'll understand.
All right, sick.
Uh,
Okay, so yeah,
Shit.
you had ideas and
Mm.
with the shark gang specifically, you had the outline or maybe sort of like the details, but were like the just like that's what you had so far.
Oh well, Sharks Gang had way more to it than the Clockers did. I put a lot of work into them.
Mhm.
Shark, the leader, he's the leader who kind of teetered on the edge of insanity, but he uh, he had a popular he had a wild charisma about him, right? He had a wild charisma, and what he's a good leader. He leads in the right direction. He leads in a proper direction where everyone wins, and he has a sustainable vision. So he's not going to be some omnipotent god emperor that rules with an iron fist, but someone who would help maintain structure and order. Um, Not necessarily through fear, but through respect. And the gang members that were around him weren't around him because they were afraid of him. They were around him because they saw his vision and they believed his vision, and they knew that Shark respected them as an individual. So they felt like they had a place. Now, it wasn't necessarily a gang of misfits, but a gang of strong individual people that make up one entity,
Mhm.
I suppose, a working hive mind. Everyone's pretty much on the same page. And Shark's design was inspired by Jaws from one of the early onset James Bond films, and we would have this big hulking menacing man in a white suit, and he would have these platinum knuckles called my pearly whites. And that would have been his unique weapon that he would have gifted to you at some point. I would have had him gift that to you at some point.
I think I made the same joke during our Lost interview, but he should you should have based him off of Jaws from Jaws.
Right, Jaws from Jaws, right? Exactly. Yeah. Not much I could do there since there's no like water.
Just make him a
there's,
giant
there's
sentient
no
shark.
bodies of water. Um, so where the gang would reside in was an old abandoned casino. It was a casino resort, and it had a sort of a Native American theme to it. When Zapp created it in the GAC, I drew it out on paper, and he brought it to life in the GAC. And it's very, very, very big, grandiose building, especially the inside. When you walk inside, I wanted to replicate the feeling of the first time you entered the strip at night,
Mhm.
right? Where you walk in, you're like, "Whoa, wow, this is pretty cool." Um, so I wanted to try and not exactly replicate that feeling, but have that sense of awe. Like when you walk into this building, it's very well kept, it's very nice, and you think, "Wow, this is a relic that's been well preserved." Um, and so lots of slot machines and lots of gang members enjoying themselves, indulging and relaxing. That was the big draw. And when you walked in, you would see Shark standing on the big main stage where performances would be held.
Mhm.
On this stage would have been his right hand man, named Moose. And why the names of animals? Why the names of animals? Shark, when he first started this gang, they resided in an old museum, and so some people didn't have names, some people didn't remember their names, etc. So they chose certain animals of the old world in exhibits. Some of the statues were crumbled away, so some people might not even know what a moose is or what it looks like, but they had a description of said animal. And that would tend to fit the personality of the person you were talking to. So the third person who was going to be a companion was an albino woman named Lily, reference to a water lily.
Mhm.
She was a tribal, and her mother and father, or her father was albino, and that's where she got the trait. So she has all white hair, white eyebrows, purplish eyes, and very, very pale skin, and she'd be wearing a red dress. So she's one of the first things that you would see, just because of her the pale skin contrasting to the red dresses. It sticks out quite a bit.
Mhm.
And so the first two people I wanted you to really take note of in this big building was Shark and Lily. And so those two, uh, sh- Lily would be sort of like a daughter to Shark, right? Shark being her adoptive father figure, more or less. And it would be a very pleasant vibe. I wanted to have a very pleasant vibe in this place. There was going to be, I would have the old world blues radio playing in the background. And so when you when you first walk up to Shark and he would initiate dialogue with you, you'd think, "Oh wow, this big crazy motherfucker's gonna gonna take a bite out of me." No, he has a very inviting personality. He would welcome you in open arms. depending on, of course, your reputation. Um, but he'd be very loud and welcoming, like, "Yes, welcome, welcome. This is my spot. This is my house." And it would be a vibe you probably weren't expecting. It'd be a vibe that you probably wouldn't be expecting because of rumors on the outside. You would know that Shark has one of the most organized and disciplined gangs out there, and they're the ones that are a direct contender for taking over this whole spot with the Clockers. So what Shark was doing was biding his time, pooling his resources, and then he's going to unleash them in a sense. And so that was the whole faction quest for that side. I had another companion, and she was going to have a much bigger part in the narrative, named Eden. Eden's been rewritten like 4 or 5 times to accommodate accommodate
Yeah.
what we for all the changes that were made, and it's all of my ideas. Every single one was ultimately met with a sorry no.
Mhm.
Mm.
And it wasn't a sorry no off the rip. I made all of this stuff. I created so many things, spent hours writing and spent hours of time thinking about these different things and how they should fit into the world and writing dialogue for these characters and trying to make them as 3D as possible. And then I put all this work into it, and then ultimately Zap said, yeah, sorry, no, I don't want to do that anymore.
Mhm.
So that was the first time that happened. And I'm like, okay, what the fuck? So I still have all of these. And this is just what I did. We're not even halfway done, man. We're only like 25% into this.
Right, yeah.
So this was a lot, and it was a big letdown. And I remember talking with Torn before he was officially a part of the team. I had talked with Torn about concept ideas to make Eden this boogeyman of Nuevo Mexico. And so his idea was he asked me if I had ever heard of the Santisma Muerte,
Mhm.
the Lady of Death. And I said, no, what the hell's that? And so he educated me on all this lore of this Lady of Death and how powerful, menacing, and antichrist she was.
Mhm.
And the story's terrifying, really. I mean, the Muerte is very, very, very scary. Had very, very scary stories, and lots of stories written about her and told, passed down generations. Very, very interesting stuff. And so when he brought that on, I'm like, oh my god, this is perfect. People will love this shit. If you like the Dark Brotherhood from Oblivion, you're gonna love this shit. And so I thought this is like Night Mother type of like levels of wow, this is really cool. This is really interesting. This goes so deep, and it has the potential to be its own thing, right? Much like how the Dark Brotherhood was in Oblivion, it's good enough to be its own thing outside of the main quest line. So going through all this concepts and talking with Torn, and then ultimately I told Torn, hey man, by the way, that all that was scrapped, and he goes, what the fuck?
Yeah. It was a lot.
It was
It was
quite
a
a
lot.
lot. And this is
Yeah.
even before Torn was even involved in the team officially.
We had
So,
assets built and like it was placed and we had shots of it. We still have those somewhere. Uh
yeah,
they
Torn,
I
you drew up some concept art for Eden and the statue and her
yeah, and
arm.
yeah, of like the shrines that you would have to like. So the idea was, I guess, that you would, as a player, visit these shrines that were around these parts of, I guess, the world spaces. They're in different world spaces,
Yeah, the citizens
and
would make these shrines, by the way. This is all man-made stuff.
Mhm.
yeah, these are like almost like an offerenda, but not the same. And what's happening is they're praying to the Santuza Muerte for salvation, which is, that's taboo. It's very taboo. You're not supposed to do that per se if you're Catholic. Catholics who pray the to the Santuza Muerte there, most of them are like in the. I'm not going to say that most of them, but let's just say that there's a stereotype or a perception that people who do that, who practice that particular type of religion, are involved with, uh,
With
you
gangs.
know, the gangs,
Yeah.
and drug violence and et cetera, et cetera. So
I
yes,
actually
exactly.
saw a TikTok video, like I think just yesterday, and it was from like I don't know if because like televised courtroom dramas like Judge Judy, Judge Mathis, stuff like that. Um, I it's weird because I've been hearing more so recently that a lot of that stuff is actually like scripted and not actual cases and stuff like that, which it's television, so that makes sense. But I saw one the other day on TikTok. I don't know what it was from, but it was this lady who was basically accusing uh her, I think it was a neighbor, um of being a member of a gang and like painting these gang symbols and all this stuff. And she showed an example of the artwork that this man had did. And with this being an audio based show, it's a little bit less of an impact. But middle, the end, like the big punchline here is that the gentleman in question had recently lost his grandmother. She had passed away, and he got a permit from the city to paint a mural uh recognizing her grand his grandmother, or grandmother, yeah. And there were like, because he's Mexican American, has a whole lot of heritage and culture in that specific regard. There were obviously things like roses and skulls to honor Dia de los Muertos, and all this stuff. And she's like, "Oh, there's skulls and roses, and that's gang affiliation." And it's just like, no, it's not. It's just a cultural thing. It's unrelated to any sort of like gang narrative.
Right, right. You're right. But there are, it's like anything that's good. There's parts of it that, there are people who do that and then take it going further and do things like they're practicing Santerisma, or, they're doing brujeria, they're doing witchcraft and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, obviously.
That's kind of like closer to what we're trying to do over here. But absolutely, you're
Mhm.
absolutely right on. Absolutely. Um, but to get back to what we were mentioning about the Muerta being in the gameplay, these villagers would build these shrines and pray to this Muerte, hoping that there would be some kind of divine retribution for them. Like they would come through and like take care of these, uh, the narrative, with the problems that they have, like the
Mhm.
people hurting people, the people killing people, some of the gangs, et cetera, et cetera. Um, you as a player would go and visit these shrines, and you would be able to open up these letters almost like a drop zone, and read letters and see the offerings, and then take that mission and go and deal with that problem. There was, I don't know if we had a bunch of these kinds of things planned, Bishop.
So, well, how this started, why people started making these shrines and praying to the Muerte was because Eden was a very evil neutral esque character. She was taking the mantle of the Muerte. She wasn't supernatural, but what she would do would seem supernatural, and so she would brutally eviscerate her victims, either by burning them alive or by ripping them apart and castrating them, etc., with her bionic metal arm. And she, that would, some people would start to pray out of fear. It would be conforming to this a new thing that's happening around them, while their enemies were being taken care of. They're being taken care of in such a brutal way that it induces fear. And so that's why some people were rallying behind it, though. They were like, yes, someone needs to finally taking care of these clockers ruining our way of life, trying to enslave us and abuse us. And here comes this one person who is actually doing something about it. They're actually rallying behind this idea of taking affirmative action, which like everything, that's happened many times throughout history. People attach themselves to an idea, some rally behind it, some reject it, and some conform out of fear. So to have you meet Eden, you would start picking up these dead drop location notes where people would be requesting, hey, kill this person for me, or this person did this. Muerte, there's these terrible, they're kidnapping people in the night. Um, we need someone to fight for us and stop them. And so you as the player could go up to these, however many there were going to be, I'm not sure. But we didn't quite get to that point of finalization. But nonetheless, you could interact with these things. And I think after you successfully completed two of these, on the third one, Eden herself would ambush you and then drag you back to her cave, and you'd wake up either sedated or tied up, and she'd go, "Why are you taking my notes?" And you'd you'd find this woman, all jet black hair with a bionic arm and this rebreather esque mask, and she'd be talking to you in this muffled voice, and she's got a gun to your head, and all of a sudden it's this, whoa, holy shit, this is real. Like they're praying to someone real. It's not just this omnipotent god. Like someone is actually going out in the physical world and doing these things. And so it was a really great idea. It
Right.
was really fun, and I thought the reveal was really great. And yeah, that was probably the most heartbreaking thing that I had to scrap. That was going to be a lot of fun
So
to create.
that was probably one of the bigger uh contributions that you and Torn made to the mod project that unfortunately ended up uh
Oh, I'd say that was actually one of the smaller ones, to be
really.
Yeah,
honest with you.
it's like yeah,
What
that's
would,
the smallest thing. That's the
oh,
thing that they
okay.
cut away that you got to see.
Then what would be like the biggest contribution then?
Oh boy.
uh
Okay, we're
oh,
jumping that far. All right.
okay. So do you want to tell them about it? Go
I'll
ahead.
open it up. I have the doc here.
Go ahead.
So, when after Zap wiped all that and kind of went MIA for a good 6 7 months, honestly,
Mhm.
he kind of went MIA. I didn't speak with him apart from a little hi, how's it going? We didn't really talk about the mod whatsoever. And okay, sorry, just bringing the document up. So suddenly he came out with this, or he did ask me out of nowhere to voice some ghouls
Mhm.
or voice certain characters. So my voice was a part of um, the little ghoul habitat, the radiation pit they lived in. And
The what did they
yeah, he
call it?
came out with this banger trailer. I mean, it
It's
came out
amazing.
of nowhere. I have
Restored
nothing.
faith.
Right, right. It restored everyone's faith, and I'm like, whoa, shit! Like, it looked almost done. To be honest with you, if you just
We all
look at
thought it
the
was
trailer,
playable. Yeah, I
yeah,
thought it was
we
ready.
thought, oh, this is like about to be playable. This is crazy. Zap's been cooking this whole time. We had no idea. And so, not the case, by the way. That was very far from the truth.
Mm.
But he came to. I was the first one to see it before anybody, and so I did the voice lines, and he integrated it into the trailer, and then it released, and again, overwhelmingly positive reaction from thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, and there was, I think, a week or so maybe only just a few days after the trailer dropped, where he then asked me, "Hey, man, I'm gonna need some more content for this. The project needs more. I hate to ask more of you or ask more of you than what I already have. I'm sorry we had to get rid of all that stuff, but can you make something else in Colorado? I don't have anything for Colorado, and I want to do that snow area. I want to do that area in the mountains that you talked about that you wanted, and I wanted to do something with that." And he said, "I also want to bring back Eden." And I'm like, "Oh, holy shit! Well, let's go." It just went to a full stop, and now it's going full throttle all of a sudden. And so, of course, I was all in. Naturally, of course, after seeing that trailer, I'm like, "Yeah, 200%, I'm in." And so, what did I do after that? I'm pretty sure maybe a few days later, I contacted you, Torn, and I'm like, "Hey, man, we're so back."
Yeah, I remember seeing that trailer and thinking, "Oh man, he's really cooking. No wonder he striped everything. He has a very clear direction. He knows where he's going right now." And when Bishop came to me and said, "Hey, bro, we should Zap said we should build some stuff." I was like, "Okay, sure,
That's when I
let's."
invited you onto the team officially.
hmm hmm And I was more than happy to join. It was after the trailer, I was hype. I was ready to do whatever they needed to do as quickly as possible too, because I felt like this guy's getting close to being done, and he's asking us to write to fill in. We need to play catch up to him. So I started writing as soon as Bishop started asking me to. But it was very it put a fire under your butt for sure.
Yeah.
It was quick.
We were extremely productive off the rip. I mean, I think that was honestly where the project reached its peak
Mhm.
in terms of ideas and stuff getting done. On Torn and I's end, um, we did so much, and so what we well a lot of it was just a lot of trial and error, right? It was a lot of trial and error. So we were throwing many different ideas at the wall to see what stuck. So we came up with, or we knew that the intros and first impressions were extremely important. And so what we wanted to do, since you're in, the Nuevo Mexico desert and everything's hot, dry, and barren, we're all of a sudden you're getting catapulted into this snowy area. It's the exact opposite. It's a nuclear winter,
Mhm.
so to speak. And so it's like a DLC sized area. It would basically be what Point Lookout would be to the Capital Wasteland. All of a
Mhm.
sudden, you're in a completely different area with different rules and different, a completely different environment, just so to speak. And so, while we weren't trying to recreate the frontier, we were trying to create just something, a mountain area. What would the way of life be like? What would the vegetation be like? What kind of creatures would be there, etc. And all that stuff that I just mentioned was kind of secondary to the story. We wanted to have a solid story narrative before we worked on the finite details of that place.
Mhm.
But we decided to have it was this very old rundown town, a couple of big buildings, but the snow had mostly taken it over and it was abandoned. And so this story would revolve around these cannibalistic gang trying to, or I should say cult, not gang. This is more cult like than anything. These cannibals would sort of pick out this town, and well, it was really cool. I mean, it's hard to figure out where to start because
So
there's so much.
the the thing is,
Maybe you should continue. Maybe you should talk about
yeah,
Sophia. She was your character. So
yeah. So in that little sleepy mountain town, where the snow is covering everything up, there was going to be a young lady named Sophia, and she's raised by ranchers that came from the northern of Mexico, northern
Oh, this
Chihuahua,
was
in
the
Mexico.
Giddy Up Buttercup girl, by the
Yeah,
way.
this is the one who rides the big Giddy Up Buttercup. Um, After the bombs fell, her family immigrates north, and somewhere along the trip, uh, her mother has her prematurely and then passes away. They move further north until they find this town, and in this town there's like a small, like a church, like a mission church here, and the guy takes it as a sign, and so he sets up. Uh, Unfortunately, after the first two winters, he passes as well. So she's by herself with a bunch of other uh, families that were traveling with them into this little town. So this little town has a small little population. Uh, the thing about it is that it's an elderly population, and with a bunch of small kids that are not in fighting shape. They are small, and uh, you know they're going to be easy to overrun. The thing about it though is that they have been very lucky. Is that they've been settled up in this little spot up in the Colorado mountains where nobody can really see them. You can't. They don't really make big fires. They're not making big smoke. They're not doing things that would draw a whole lot of attention. So they've been left alone for the most part.
And
Uh,
they're self-sufficient as well.
Mhm.
yeah, they can. They're like I said, they were ranchers. There is prey and animal out in the place. Like there is rad bison. They can hunt these rad bison. There is food. They may not be able to grow a whole lot, but just barely eking out things during the spring and like part of the summer. But in the winter, they're surviving on what little canned foods and like things that they could find from areas around there. There's not a whole lot of big areas there, but there are a couple of big stores in this town. There was like a company here in this town at one time that was, what were they doing? I can't remember what they were doing. They were mining. It was a mining company here, and they had a
Well,
company store.
it was Dunwich. We had Dunwich in here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had a quarry, and it was a marble quarry that was there when the town was first founded, and it was a big reason why a lot of the Spanish missionary features is there, like the white, we call it the monte, like the mission. Uh, it was like the building that you would find Sophia's family and like most of the inhabitants of this town taking refuge in because it has relatively high walls. They're relatively strong considering the everything else around them is made of wood, and this is made of more of like masonry stone. And so it stood mostly the test of time, and it's got a higher advantage point. It can overlook a lot of the town. Uh, but the quarry was being brought up by Dunwich Bore's subsidiary, and drilling resumed once there was a mission that it's like an exploratory mission that discovers some traces of a new type of uranium. It's not the same thing like how 76 has the what is that ultrasite?
Yeah, ultrasight.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. We decided to try to think of it like they have this glass-like fragile mineral called rhodochrosite.
Mhm.
It's like a
Yes.
red crystal,
Yes.
and yeah, and it's usually benign and harmless. But once that they start mining it, and Uncle Sam starts needing more like stuff in pre-war, one of them, it's hard to describe this. They were looking for a new type of material that could make laser weapons more functional, like improve their heat retention. So that in Fallout lore that they always complain about how the crystal lenses on these things are overheating and melting and falling apart. Like energy weapons are very hard to maintain.
Mhm.
So Uncle Sam was trying to find a way to make that stuff last longer. And the answer comes when a technician fired an energy weapon into a small polished sample of rhodochrosite, and it revealed the material was slightly more robust than standard opponents, and it could actually stay cooler longer. So you could fire more lasers out of it, and it was pretty cool. It was a groundbreaking thing. They built a couple of test weapons here on site, but for some reason the project failed.
Mm.
Everybody who got involved, the project never got out of the alpha phase. So they're using a chemical in the process to extract the other materials away from the crowsite to get it pure, right? So they can refine it. And in the process, what they're doing is they're accidentally exposing themselves to an uncontrolled endothermic chemical reaction that's releasing another chemical into the air. And it fumigates the facility that they're in. and it kills them.
Mhm.
So when you get a chance to go and check out this place later on, you can hear from the holotapes that how the cloud was making people cough up blood from their nose and their eyes, their mouth. People started to see hallucinations. Sometimes see people would start to see unseen monsters, and you would start seeing visions because when you were exposed to this invisible aerosol chemical, and it's still there in that area that you're going to go down into. There's still very high concentrations of this, and at first you don't realize it. At first, you think it's snow or like ash or like the typical stuff that you see, the particulate in the air that when you're underground, you see when you start moving dust, but you realize the first time that you see, or that the first time that you get down there, and your NPC character that you're taking with you, which we had a variety, we had three. We had the time we had planned for three of them. You could pick one to go with you down here, and it would change the experience. And so one of them would go down there, and one of them would like start having visions and freak out
Oh,
and start
right, sure.
running.
That
Yeah.
was Lily. So I rewrote Lily into this town, right? From Shark's gang.
Mhm.
So I had the albino chick with Sophia trying to help them out against this cult, right?
Right.
But the three options would be Sophia, Lily, and Eden that you could take down into this sort of quarry or building. And so Lily was the one where we had a really definitive idea where she would call out for her mother. She would think that she sees her mother and she would run further into the building. And you would lose the follower perk and you would be running trying to chase after her. And then at some point in the building, either you would reach her, you'd catch up to her, seeing hallucinating stuff yourself,
Mhm.
and then suddenly you would say the player character would ask Lily, "What did you just do? Like you just ran off on me. What are you doing?" And then she would respond, "What are you talking about? I've been right next to you the whole time. You just started sprinting into the building, and I was following you." So it'd be one of those really weird things where you'd be playing and being like, what's going on here? What the fuck just happened?" Is we're trying to create a really organic moment like that, and yeah, yeah, that was a good idea there.
Yeah, that's a very interesting storyline. One of the it I don't know. It's always just so interesting hearing the thought processes and narrative structure when it comes to things that like don't end up seeing the light of day. Really, I think that when it comes to Nuevo Mexico as like a whole, one of the like really interesting things that a lot of people started to kind of pick up, or perhaps about more so about the stuff that was sort of publicly made available.
Mm,
A lot of people were picking up obvious inspiration from like Fallout Van Buren and obviously Fallout New Vegas, but a lot of it seemed to be taking a lot of inspiration from Van Buren and a lot of other like lost Fallout medium. What was the like because obviously the overall story didn't get completed and was still seemed to be heavily in development, but a lot of those more
mm.
so like elements. What was sort of the direction that they were going there that the story was going with them?
With who exactly? Sorry.
So like the for example, I don't think it's specifically Tibbet's prison, but there was a
Mm,
prison
mm,
in shown in one of the trailers
yes.
that had very strong uh, similarities to Tibbet's prison. The Ghoul
Yes.
Reservation, I think, was another one that was taken from Van Buren,
Hmm.
and like other elements akin to that. What was sort of the general understanding of where the story was heading when it came to like those elements specifically?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a good.
Yeah,
That's a good
it's a good
question.
joke. Yeah. Okay. So Zap had a really strong start.
Mhm.
Okay. He took off flying and then he fell face first, narratively.
Mhm.
He had no idea what he was going to do with Tippett's Prison or the Ghoul Reservation, and he kind of, honestly, kind of just sidestepped it altogether. And um, yeah, there was no end goal there. He hard pivoted into Mexico, like over the border,
Mhm.
and that's where the final trailer took place. Yeah, the final trailer that was released, which was there was that woman gang leader, and there was a little bit of Voltropolis, which was the underground vault city, and those were really the only two things that he started working on at the end of this project. And by the way, by that time, Zap came to us and said, "Yeah, all that stuff that you guys did for Colorado and all the mountains and everything, yeah, wiped, done. We're not doing it."
Mhm.
And
We had,
so,
had a lot.
yeah, go
Hmm?
ahead. Go ahead.
No, 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 go keep going. We'll talk about it later.
we
Okay, no big deal.
we had yeah, we had even more. We didn't even cover all of it, but we had much more, and there was a really strong narrative going. Torn and I worked together on um, writing up the intro quest to where you'd meet everybody in the town, and we had that pretty solid. It was good to go. We had Torn made a spreadsheet of everything, and Toshi, I believe I told you about this last time.
Mhm.
It's like the big conspiracy theory board where a bunch of red strings are connecting everything to
Yeah, the
one
fucking
thing.
cork board of
Right.
the grand conspiracy.
You're right, right. So it was organized, though. Everything was very organized, and everything was made with a purpose.
Mhm.
Nothing was wasted. And so, yeah, Zap just came in and one day, out of nowhere, and said, "Yeah, I don't want to do that anymore." We're like, "Oh, okay." Um, Torn, you straight up left. You straight up left the project
I
after
was
that.
like, okay. I was like, I put a
Yeah,
lot of time into this, and you know, it seems like he's doing this over and over. I'm not sure if I want to keep doing with this. I'm just going to take a step back.
and when that happened, I pretty much told I talked to Zap and I said the same thing. I'm like, listen, man, I got your back and everything, and I hope you can finish this project wherever you're going with it, but I'm done. Like, I'm not going to write anymore. I'm not writing anymore. If you need me to voice a character or whatever, I'll gladly do that. Um, but as terms of creating anything and writing up ideas or quests, etc., I'm not doing a single bit more. I'm not doing a single bit more. I told him if he wants an opinion on something he creates, then I'll talk with him about it, and that's fine. But that's the extent of what I was to Nuevo Mexico at that point. And from that point forward, that's when Zap was pretty much flying solo.
Mhm.
There was no proper dev team. There was no there was no uh there was no one else helping. It was just him and his ideas. And so while it might have looked like we were a part of the project in certain teasers and announcements that he would make, we were just, again, glorified opinion givers. And by we, I mean it was pretty much just me.
Yeah, the
Torn
advisors.
left. The outfit designers, they already did their job. They were just hanging out, and that was kind of it. There was nothing really going on. It was just Zap talking to me, getting my opinion on certain things for a long time. And that's when eventually the final trailer dropped. And let's to be clear here, Zap didn't just like shoot us in the head and then walk away,
Mhm.
right? It might seem like that's what it's coming across as. No,
Ring a
he,
ding, baby.
yeah, yeah, right.
The game was rigged from the start.
Yeah.
Kablam!
That's what it felt like. That's what it felt like in the beginning when that first happened, but he felt immense guilt about it. He
Mm.
felt extremely guilty about how he handled things, and he knew he wasn't a great leader or project development manager, etc. and he knew he apologized profusely about the whole thing, specifically towards us and
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
toward Torn and I specifically.
Hmm.
I don't know about
Mm.
anybody else, but he
Oh, I'm
reached.
sure he probably did. He's he's not a bad guy. He's just
No, he's not a bad guy at all. No,
no,
this
not at all.
wasn't
He's
supposed to
just
be a dig on him. It's
no.
just
He's
the
just
reality of the situation. He bit off more than he could chew. But to get to the question that you were asking, I needed to disclose all that first, so
Yeah.
you knew where
There
we
had
ended
to be
up.
some context.
Right, right, right. So when he put out the final trailer, I said, "Well, man, I mean, shit, you did it again. It looks great." But I asked him then, "Okay, is there any substance to this? Like, is there anything going forward? I know this trailer looks really flashy and nice, but is there anything underneath it?" Right? And he pretty much said, "Well, no, not really." And that's when he started coming to me asking, "Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing this for the right reasons? Should I be doing this?" And so, of course, this was, out of the blue. I didn't expect a question like this from him. And um, he told me a lot of things that were going on in his personal life. And I won't disclose that here.
Mm,
But when he brought all of this to me, I told him, "You really need to sit down, look in the mirror, and ask yourself, what do you want? Because if you're doing this to, quote, prove all the haters wrong, prove them wrong, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you're doing this to spite other people who have tried to bring you down, you're not doing this for the right reasons, man. You need to look inwards instead of outwards, and don't look for anybody else's approval. Do you want to keep slaving away at this project by yourself, or do you want to just close the book, say it's time, you know?" The difficult part isn't getting there; it's letting go. More or less, uh, big moral here. And so I told him that. I told him that. I said, if you stop, if you say you can't do this anymore, I will still be your friend. I will not think any less of you, and you won't be any less of a person for walking away from this. But you have to make a decision. All right. Either you stick this out and you finish this up, or you walk away from it. And so it took him a good while. It took him a good while to. He went back and forth on it for a long time, and him and I talked extensively about this for at least 2 months, maybe even more. And he said, I have to just think more. I have to take a step back and just think more about it and give it more time, not just a week or two, but I need to give it some months and see where this goes and see how I feel. So I said, good, that's what you should do. And then a bunch of bullshit happened where a few individuals tried to make up a narrative that he was getting deported. And well, we all know how that turned out. We all know. Now, the whole thing was a hoax, and the whole thing was to push him out of the community for good. And well, I guess mission accomplished for them. It worked. He said, I can't deal with this crap anymore, and the project isn't bringing me any joy. And so that's when he made the statement official. He was locking up the project for good. And so, yeah, very, very upsetting. Very upsetting to witness that and sort of be dragged into it. Um, yeah, obviously, no, he wasn't an illegal alien. He wasn't deported. He was obviously that was untrue. Uh, And yeah, that was what really what killed the project in the end is all that slander, and because there was so much positivity surrounding, so much good support coming his way, and so many voice actors who were paid and a part of the trailers, and they were so excited to be a part. They thought this was going to be huge, and well, Zap just felt terrible for letting everybody down, and he's very self-aware. He still carries it with him. He still regrets telling Torn and I no, and me especially, time and time again, where he said he wanted to do something and he just couldn't deliver on the promise. And it's not like he's got no conscience, and he really, really wanted this. Zap really wanted this, and so did we. We really wanted this. We wanted this to be fun. We created this so not just for ourselves so we could have fun, but we wanted a lot of other people to enjoy just more of what we love, and that was Fallout New Vegas. It's unfortunate that it ended the way it did, and it's even more so disappointing that Torn and I's all of our ideas, they never saw the light of day. They were all scrapped, and nobody knew about any of it except us. So that's really why we're here today. Everything that I just summed up in the last 5 minutes or so. That's why we're here. Um, to, I suppose, shed a light on what really happened, what was really going on, and there was no shady shit. There was no seedy garbage being thrown around, and um, it's just a bunch of unfortunate mishaps and a lack of Zap's lack of direction of what he wanted out of his own project. That's what that's what ultimately led to this downfall. So yeah, he's done with Zap's done with modding. He's not coming back after that, and respectfully so. After all that big fiasco that happened, um, yeah, I told him personally that he doesn't have to do anything to try to redeem himself. He should just move forward in his life and do something else. Put all of that creative energy and talent, because he was great. He was great with everything that he'd put out. It was great, and so he needs to put that energy towards something else more productive, and something that he actually enjoys doing.
To go a little bit
So yeah, I
more,
hope that answers the question.
yeah, yeah, because like I think that a lot of people, because obviously from a modding standpoint, um, from like the relationship that modding teams have with like the general public, there's a lot
Mm,
of stuff that goes on in the background, that doesn't see the light of day. Internal politics, design differences, this, that, and the other thing. Um, to draw back to the controversy thing specifically, to go a little bit more in depth with it, just out of the clear blue sky, shortly after Fallout Nuevo Mexico, I think maybe like a day or two after Nuevo Mexico said that they were going to be shuttering operations, this random Twitter account called the Tamriel Rebuilt Watchdogs, um, which, from what I have seen and what I have researched, is intended, or is, or was. I'm not on Twitter anymore, or as often rather, so I don't know if it's still active.
mm,
But from what I've seen, it's supposed to be, as it says in the title, on the tin, as it were. It's supposed to be a watchdog community, and it's effectively, I believe it's keeping an eye on projects like Sky Oblivion, um,
mm.
to I can't read their mission statement off rip because I don't have pages up or anything, but
Right,
they're
right,
basically like an anti woke group, and are all like, we don't want wokeness or DEI or whatever to be
right,
in the mod, as caught up in this whole fucking weird unhinged wave of obsession with wokeness and gaming in the gaming community,
right,
um with and they just like randomly, again, just like a day or so after the mod announced that it was closing down, all of a sudden, again, this watchdog community group that seemed to be specifically focused on the Elder Scrolls, all of a sudden unearthed this like treasure trove of text, not text communications, sorry, Discord communications, that were apparently coming from Zapshock, um the details, a lot of it I can't remember right off the top of my head, but it was basically like it was like there was part of it was like there was an ICE raid, and he was getting like
Yeah.
grabbed and deported, and he said that he came here illegally in like a previous message, and it was so weird. One, because like why would that stuff just pop up out of the clear blue sky from
Right.
such
Exactly.
a seemingly unaffiliated uh like I think at that point they didn't even have like 50 subscriber or 50 followers on Twitter. Just a random account like that just have that information. But then for people specifically who have like spoken with Zap and more so know like his speech patterns and stuff, at least as far as, in text goes, um, it just like immediately fell off. And it was just like the weirdest thing, but it caught some
It's
traction.
fabricated.
Yeah, it was 100% fabricated. Anybody who has, well, I I was gonna say anybody who has any degree of like online literacy can see that instantly, but there's a lot of instances where it can be harder, and you kind of just have to have like gut feeling or that internal X factor that makes it easier for you to pick up on things like that. But for me, I saw that instantly. I'm like, oh yeah, this is 100% fake. No shot. Too
Yeah.
many red flags here. Um, but
You brought it to my attention,
yeah,
actually.
I did. I think I messaged both you and Zap, and I'm like this
What's
is
going on
obviously
here?
bullshit, but like you guys should probably know about this because this is weird.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
very.
but
Very.
it got a little bit of traction because larger Twitter accounts picked it up that were also in that sort of like anti woke, anti industry gaming sphere. And then it got a whole lot of traction, and then it spread. I don't think it got, because I remember seeing like articles actually written about the frontier and its whole fallout. I don't remember seeing any about the whole Zap Shock getting deported situation, which again, 100% fake,
Right.
1000% fake. Um, but as you said, obviously after that, Zap made a response, called him out, which for like hell yeah, brother, kind of shit, especially for the kind of person Zap is. We haven't gone into it, and we won't go too deep into it because he's not here. But he's a very
Right.
like reserved person. Uh,
Very.
yeah,
Very.
and he's not like super confrontational or anything. And so like for me, seeing him just like step and be like, fuck you. I'm like, yeah, drag him.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was,
don't get me wrong. He's stirred the pot, and he's dished it out before as well. I
no,
believe that's where this stuff started. He's
I would,
burned his bridges for sure.
I would imagine
But
that he would have had to be able to muster that sort of gumption to clap
right.
back like that against the
Right.
void, as it were. um, but that more so specifically that reaction. Obviously, that one specifically is an outlier. Um, to be sure, but the general reaction from the Fallout New Vegas community was obviously, not positive. It ranged from being disappointed to, people saying like, oh, the reason makes sense. I hope, he can, like recoup and like move on or get back into it, whatever he's going to do. And then there was just this general din of like sort of like toxicity, right? It manifested in different ways. Obviously, one of them being these unfounded racist accusations made against Zapshock, but a lot of it was still like it had a lot of negative energy about it, and it could be continued bad feelings from the fallout of the frontier, the generalization of the overall temperature of the New Vegas community really shifting a lot in its overall perspective on both the modding community, Bethesda as a company, and just like the general tone of the gaming industry and the gaming landscape. So there's all these things that are sort of like culminating together into this really just like weird atmosphere, for you guys specifically, especially since you have a lot of experience in obviously the modding scene, obviously with Nuevo Mexico, Fallout New Vegas specifically. What has been your guys' reading of just the temperature of Fallout New Vegas, the community, the modding community, ever since all of this like sort of fell through? Because I think a lot of people were looking at Nuevo Mexico as sort of like not really like the redeemer, but the indicator that there could still be like really good projects that like avoid drama and puppeting and like all these negative connotations that got ascribed to the New Vegas specifically segment of the Fallout modding community after the Frontier. But what were your guys's readings of the landscape after Nuevo Mexico properly shut down?
Well, to start, um, it could have been that. It could have been the redemption, so to speak. It could have been something that brought a positive light to everything. But Zap didn't keep his mouth shut. If Zap didn't engage with the people that were trying to bait him, more or less, if he didn't engage with all that, then a lot of this stuff never would have happened, right? If he just let it go and rolled with the punches, then, well, like I said, a lot of this stuff that transpired would not have happened at all. All that deporting nonsense, like that wouldn't have happened. Or maybe rather it maybe that people would have tried to make it happen and it never would have gained the traction that it did. So it's one of those things where this was some of this stuff was very preventable, but he just didn't have the self-respect to avoid all that. And again, very human reactions from him. Very, these were very provoked responses. You know, he wasn't trying to dog on people to look for fights, um, but he was looking for negativity about him, and then he would focus on that, and then he'd just go on a he would clap back, so to speak. He wouldn't take it lying down. He was trying to clap back. So I'm not dogging on him for that, but I think he would have had an easier time if he took the high road on that one, for sure. Because people are gonna say bad stuff about you no matter what. I mean, he could have had the greatest mod project of all time, transcending past New Vegas and just the best mod ever in any game, and people still would have tried to dog on him. So, people have criticized my voice acting, which rightfully so. I'm not a professional, but in no way am I going to try and angrily engage with these people. Um, but as far as what I think of the community, a lot of the silent majority just wants to play fun mod content for one of their favorite games. And the people that are, you know, the angriest people are always going to make the most noise, right?
Yeah.
So it might look like, oh, this community is up in arms and they're so angry and they're petty and they're phobists and ists and whatever they, what it looks like on the outside. But the truth of the matter is that's not the case. That's not the case. There's so many good people in this community. Toshi, you're an example. There's so many just positive people who are just trying to play the game and spread the good word that this game is still worth playing and the content that people are making for this franchise is worth playing. So my opinion of the game and the community hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. My motivation, more or less, to be a creative outlet in this space has diminished dramatically. unfortunately, where I've wanted to give back to this game for years, and I've spent years alongside Torn trying to do that, trying to accomplish that. And unfortunately, it's the efforts have come up short, or we've just been told simply no. And yeah, yeah, it's just one of those things where my opinion on the community hasn't changed, but my motivation to be a part of it creatively has absolutely changed and diminished.
Why do you think that
So
is?
why? Well, I mean, I've spent hundreds of hours trying to trying to make something entertaining not only for myself, but for other players, and also make it to an acceptable caliber to where it can be played alongside the base game. So to try and spend as much time on that as you can to try and make it worthy of New Vegas to be in the same mentioned in the same alongside mentioned alongside New Vegas. It's very taxing. It requires a lot of effort, time, and trial and error. And well, when you get knocked down that many times, you start to lose motivation. And I'm not saying like, oh, I should give up. I'm not saying that I should abandon these ideas. Torn and I still have all of the documents. We have everything still, just in case, you really never know. But to just get back on the horse for like the fourth, fifth time, it's tough. And I'm getting older, man. I'm 28 years old, and I have
Oh,
I have
28
a
years
house and
old.
a
I mean,
wife. And
35
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
February. Shut up.
So
Yeah. Hey.
This
Both of you.
fucking guy here.
yeah.
Both of you silence.
But
Uh,
I'm getting the point is I'm getting older,
Yeah.
right? I want to have kids, and they're my job. I have more responsibilities now with my job, and it's uh it's tough to forcefully put aside time for this again and still have the same go get 'em attitude.
Mm.
Of course, I can't speak for Torn. I want to let Torn talk about this as well for his side. But that's my why. That's my why of everything.
Torn, quick, take the floor. Bishop's been yapping forever.
Yeah.
well, I,
He's good at it. He's got
I well, I got to be honest with you. I
one
agree
of the
with.
things. Sorry, hold on. I want to jump in here real quick. Bishop has talked before, previously in this interview about not being like the best voice actor, which is funny because of a lot of the voices I've heard. Bishop has one of the most like interesting narrative voices. Like hearing Bishop like read something for like a YouTube video or like narrate something. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Me
Right,
personally.
Thank you.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thanks.
See, he agrees.
I would watch this content, but more importantly, I would listen to like an audiobook of this.
All
Hey,
right,
Bishop,
Bishop. Or
you're really good,
what are you
and
gonna do?
sometimes
Thank you.
Are you gonna
surprise me.
are you gonna start
I
reading?
appreciate that.
You gonna start up an SCP channel? Start reading about the SCPs.
Yeah, I'll dive into some really crazy lore about
That's
one of the craziest indie games of all time. Yeah.
all right. So Torn, same basic question. What's been your gauge of the temperature of the Fallout New Vegas specifically? Because I feel like when it comes to a lot of the other Fallout titles, more specifically in this instance, Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, there's a much more positive connotation, especially with the modding community. At least in Fallout 4, that doesn't really there is one for Fallout 76, but it's not very well well expanded. It's there, but it doesn't have a whole lot of support. But the game itself does have a lot of fans who are like real positive about it. Obviously, both have their contractors, their the people who'd say like, oh, these aren't good games and stuff. But when it comes to overall, I feel like overall the Fallout community is generally positive about modding and games and such. When it comes to New Vegas, it feels like there's some sort of additional hang up or some other third thing that changes it based on or compared to the general vibes of the other communities. But when it comes to New Vegas, what have you sort of gauged the temperature as following Nuevo Mexico's closure?
Well, I've I, I agree with Bishop on a lot of his points, but the temperature, uh, it seemed like it was like a lot of people just didn't care at first, personally. But as I started reading through other people who are like following the project, there was like a significant bathing of ice water on a lot of the people who were following it. They were just really disappointed and down about it. The community as a whole was kind of looking forward to it. I felt like it seemed like it was more of a positive thing than there was more positive energy in it for sure than negative. And yeah, it's really disappointing to see how a couple of loud voices can completely dishevel uh, a project like this. Uh, do I think that the community in New Vegas is particularly more prone to having situations like this happen? Perhaps because you might have people in the community who have a specific type of skill set or who are doing specific types of things, and they just they just don't like other people's politics. It happens. This is you could say all day that a lot of these games aren't political, but I think that New Vegas is one of the most, and it kind of just makes these kind of weird things kind of happen in a weird way. I don't know. It kind of opens itself up to internal politics, and that can open itself up to just inert meanness, like just people just being mean to each other. Uh, Not just because, but it's I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing to define in the New Vegas community. It really is. I know what you're talking about because you've got certain groups of people who make a certain type of content, especially on YouTube. I've noticed they make a certain type of content revolving New Vegas where they're just kind of. Uh, I was going to use the word Sigma content because that's what it is. They're trying to make Sigma content out of the Fallout New Vegas community, and there's something cool to be said for some videos with funk music being played on it and you're doing 360 no scopes or whatever. That's kind of cool, right? But a lot of the political stuff behind it is, I guess, that could make a lot of people in the community nervous. And once you put that tension up and everybody's guards up, any little thing can set off that powder keg. And I
Mhm.
guess that you could say that in a way, the New Vegas community is kind of like a powder keg. It has a potential of a ton of energy. It could be positive or it could be negative, and it just takes the wrong kind of everyone kind of push in one direction, and now you've got problems, or now you've got a really good loyal fan base that really wants to see you succeed, and it really matters how you handle them. And unfortunately, Zap chose the latter.
Do you think it's intrinsically political, as in, Democrats, Republicans, what have you, or uh is it more so like political in the sense of like when it has as it relates to the gaming industry, and to more so hyper to instantly intrinsically hyper focus Bethesda's gameplay, or sorry, development style, its writing style, compared to Obsidian's. um in essence, is it sort of this streamlining, dulled down, sanitized approach to gaming compared to like the older style? I remember seeing somebody, I think it was in a comment to one of my videos. I can't remember what specifically, but I remember seeing somebody, oh no, it was during a live stream. I remember seeing somebody mention that in like Fallout New Vegas specifically, there's a lot more. Actually, no, it was in Fallout 3. In Fallout 3, there's a lot more references to slavery, obviously, Paradise Falls, and what the railroad initially was, being, just like the Harriet Tubman Railroad, a way for slaves to find freedom. But slavery was mentioned a lot more in Fallout 3. Obviously, it's present in Fallout New Vegas with like the Legion and stuff. But when you get to Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, those elements aren't really there as prominently. They do still sort of exist and are kind of mentioned in, you know, both of those games, 4 and 76, but they aren't as present. And there's a lot of people who say like, oh, that's because, Bethesda started to play it safe. They started going with less, edgy or, controversial, or maybe not controversial, but like deeper or darker topics like that. It's a trend that we see in a lot of video games. Rockstar still puts out, pretty explicit games, but there's never going to be another Rockstar title like Manhunt, right? Like that stuff just doesn't exist anymore. Is it more so that? Do you view it as sort of like an actual political ideological thing, or is it more of a nostalgic uh understanding of where video games used to be and being upset that that's not where they are now, so sort of like a rejection of modern game design in favor of older styles of game design and like writing and stuff?
Are you saying that we're old men yelling at clouds?
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
well, uh, well, no, I kind of see what you're saying about there being a definitive change in the way that Bethesda approaches some of their content with 4 and 76. You're right. A lot of the more edgier content or some of the other stuff that we would see in like Obsidian's writing is, I wouldn't say like white clean, but it's sanitized a little bit for us for consumption, for mass consumption. And does that depoliticalize some of that? Perhaps, because because with sanitation you lose nuance. With nuance, you just kind of get a left and right kind of choice, yes or no. There's not a lot of super heavy political thinking thing to be done in 76, is there? Uh, there's not a whole lot of consequence in 76, is there? Uh, but with Obsidian's writing and the way they write, those things are definitely something from the past. They put more time into it because there was more. They took more care in the ability to have a different experience every single time that you played this game instead of just like a shooting gallery, which is what these newer Fallout titles seems to be rambling towards. And that's fine. That's fine that we get better shooting mechanics and we have more things that we can do. But I also want to be able to do more things like we used to be able to do in these other games, like be able to lie to a character and then have that watch that person go and do something to this other character and have that affect the story down the line. Consequence. I feel as though consequence in a lot of things is gone. But back to whether it's political or not, I'm not 100% sure about that. I feel like hard topics, things with political like with nuance, things that actually have you questioning your morals, have you questioning who you are. These things force you to like to see yourself against yourself and question who you are, and that might make you a little bit more forward uh in your fervent, like, how do I say this, uh like in how you feel or you portray yourself because of what you've discovered. It's hard to understand. It's hard for me to put this into words. um but I feel like because you're having to play this game and they're presenting you with some options that are, morally ambiguous, you have choices, there are consequences. you know some people will take that personality or what they discover or whatever, and they kind of just become that. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Fallout New Vegas, it's got some really difficult questions and some really difficult storylines and some really difficult things to unpack. It's not a, hey, we're the big good guy, we should go and, no, it's different than that.
Mhm.
And I don't know. It's when anything is hard, you get people who are gonna get extreme with it, right? I don't know. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes some people can just take it a little too far. Like they get into it and then they get too into it,
Yeah.
and then they become obsessive. Kind of like that. That's kind of what I mean.
Yeah, and I feel like with the because again, when it with me specifically, I think it is kind of one of those things where it's more so uh the argument of quality. There are specific elements about uh Fallout 4 or Fallout 76 that I think are better than Fallout New Vegas, but the most definitive thing is that the writing isn't as on par when you compare specifically like the mainline quests, right? The story quest. I would say that the story quest of New Vegas is obviously superior to like Fallout 4. Um but there's specific elements of Fallout 4 like the settlement building I think is really interesting. Some of
Yeah, I
the
like that.
some of the technical stuff that they did. I think it was an interesting attempt or an interesting choice to try to experiment with a voice protagonist and stuff. Um I would probably say I like the visual representation of dialogue between characters in Fallout 4 more than in like practically any other Fallout game specifically. You know, that thing where you can when your character is talking, you're looking at them. When the other character is talking, you're looking at them. Obviously that's something that can only really happen naturally in a voice protagonist situation, and that's one of the things that a lot of people didn't really like about Fallout 4, and it's something that I would also probably say I don't really like. But the dynamic camera angles when you're talking to somebody else, you're not just like looking straight at them. It's kind of like at a little bit of a side profile, a little bit more cinematic. uh Me personally, I like that. There's some people who don't, and like that's really what it is. It's a choice and it's a preference thing, and I think at the end of the day it all sort of like boils down to that. I don't think that there's ever going to be anything that people are going to like actually reach agreements on with this thing, or like conclusions, but it's always, you know, like you said, interacting with New Vegas specifically, the questions, the topics that it breaches, it brings up those questions not for there to be any sort of, you know, conclusion or answer, but to engage the player in the understanding of the topic and the questioning of what is, you know, morally, justifiably, logically correct. You know, like that's one of the things that the ending of New Vegas specifically is probably the big thing. It doesn't give you like any closure on what happens. I mean, it does give you a little bit of closure on what happens after the story, but there's no like, you know, oh, was this, you know, the best option for the Mojave? Because like that's not really the point of the game. The point isn't to, you know, pick the best option that's going to be best for New Vegas and the rest of the wasteland. The point is to pick an option and then ask yourself, is what I did a reflection of who I, as the player, as the character, is okay with? And then you can, you know, internally process that and everything. But now we're getting into philosophy, and then if we do that, we're going to be here for like, this is going to be like like a 5 hour long episode. um but it to put to put a point on it, it is a an interesting um it is an interesting topic to talk about, because like I said, there's never really like an exact answer. There's just the question itself or the discussion itself. And when it comes to Fallout games, I feel like New Vegas specifically is really good at doing that. And I think the New Vegas community
Yes.
is really good at having those conversations. But as you said, there are some people who definitely take it to that nth degree, where it becomes a bit more of an extreme conversation that is probably not the best for the community to be having, in the sense that it like drives people away, obviously.
Right, polite company. We should have you having polite conversation in polite company with the
Exactly.
assumption that other people want to join this community And the way that we speak to each other in the community is either going to drive them to us or drive them away.
Exactly. Um, so obviously, like the frontier, that was a big thing for the community. A lot of negativity associated with the project. There's been, in the years since, there's been a lot of people who've talked about it. A lot of people, a lot of content creators, a lot of individual people that have kept the conversation going. Obviously, there's still a lot of stigma against the project, even though it is getting, at this point, I believe it's its second or third rework attempt. This one seems to be a little bit, have a little bit more, meat to it, a little bit more gas in the tank to keep it
Ooh.
going all the way to the end. Whether or not it actually does, that's a conversation for another day. Um, but to briefly touch on it, um, how do you feel that Nuevo Mexico sort of either suffered or benefited, or this, that, or the other thing? um what sort of relation in that sense does Nuevo Mexico have to the failure, the success of Fallout the Frontier? And if Fallout the Frontier is able to actually pull off a comeback story, could something be seen as maybe not standard but achievable for other big mod projects like Fallout Nuevo Mexico? Torn, if you want to keep the ball rolling here, pop off, King.
Us. Absolutely. I would hope so. I would hope that the team that's working on the second or third iteration of the Frontier succeeds. If something like that works and the community has a really positive reaction to it, it would definitely do what you said and show that, hey, there's life in these projects. The community together can, go to one or two of these projects and pick it up and really put out good content and really do good work with, what little that we have. Um, that being said, you know, man, I'm so sorry. My mic just is starting to pop. Can you
Oh,
still hear me?
yeah, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Okay.
Oh, I guess it was just that. I'm sorry. Can you do me a favor,
Yeah.
Toshi? Can you give me the second half of the question one more time?
So the first half was basically like, Fallout the Frontier. A lot of people had some
Oh yeah.
very strong reaction to it. It's trying to have a comeback. Um, Whether or not it succeeds or fails in its comeback, how do you feel that Nuevo Mexico's uh, prospects, in other words, its
Ah,
anticipation for success, was affected by the Frontier? And if the Frontier is able to make a comeback, would that help to set a precedent, or in other words, to I guess in this specific instance, to lower the temperature of the community to have a more optimistic or hopeful outlook that other big projects like Nuevo Mexico uh, can still succeed or could make a similar comeback with, you know, obviously enough time and dedication.
did the frontier have an effect on Nuevo Mexico's development? The temperature of the frontier? Yeah, of course it did. The disappointment that some people felt from the bad taste in their mouth that they had from the frontier definitely had an effect on the way that we were doing things and the way that we were trying to approach the writing and the project approach, how we were doing things. I know Zap was definitely obsessed with that. Uh, and to the second part of the question, yes, I do believe that if the frontier is successful with their reboot or rebranding, if you will, that it would set a really good precedent for the community to show that, yeah, we can take these projects that were broken or messed up or that maybe just a little lackluster, and we can put a new coat of polish on it if we all work together, or we have a good team behind it, or if there's a little bit more resources, a little bit more oversight, a little bit more care given to these projects. I definitely believe that it could do something like that, and I'm excited to see whether the frontier actually succeeds. I definitely would love to see it because I would love to take another crack at New Mexico. Nuevo Mexico uh, had a very interesting idea behind it. Zap wasn't wrong. It's still very much something that I would love to be a part of. If ring me, I guess. If you decide to try it yourself, go for it.
Right. um, Bishop, what about you? What do you think? What are your expectations? Obviously, same question, but
Right.
what's your mindset when it comes to what could be and what might be?
Hmm. Well, well, did the frontier affect Nuevo Mexico? Yeah, 200%. I remember that was probably the most popular comment we got. Are you going to be anything like the frontier? Is this going to be like the
Mm,
frontier? Please don't be like the frontier. I hate the frontier. I want this to be exact opposite of the frontier. Blah 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 blah. Um, Newsflash: a lot of people actually liked the frontier.
Yeah,
The
I
good
was
parts.
I was actually about to say it's funny because in the retrospect, I've been seeing a lot more people who have been saying like, "Oh, the frontier." They were either saying like, "Oh, I really enjoyed the frontier." Um, I think I saw somebody who said that they actually enjoyed the frontier more than like Fallout Fallout 4 or Fallout 76, one of them. Which like to
That's
be
funny.
wow.
to be fair,
Yeah.
uh when it comes to like the landscape and some of the side content, like the side quests and stuff, I can get it. But
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah,
whoever made
200%.
that comment, I hate to say it, you're 110% wrong. Like, wow, what an L
Well, hey,
take.
well, hold on.
But
They have a right to like what they like.
they do.
That's
But I
They have
will
a right to like.
say, in retrospect, and especially as somebody who's been who more so just recently put out a video talking about the frontier and like diving into the main quest line,
Mm.
just like with Bethesda, Fallout 4 specifically, the main quests are not great. They range from serviceable to just absolutely abysmal. The NCR
Yep. Oh,
campaign
agreed. Yeah,
undefendable, but there is a lot of promise in the mod itself, and a lot of the stories
absolutely.
are really well done. And
Yeah,
I definitely
there's a lot of good stuff in there.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So I
I've played hundreds of hours at the Frontier. I've tried to comb it over and try to find that good stuff, and I did.
hmm
It was very
hmm
worth it. It's a very fun experience. Um, so back to the question. Yeah. And to reiterate my point before, the angriest people are always the noisiest. So while we had a lot of comments dogging on the frontier and praying for our success, um, the silent majority of people do enjoy what's there in the frontier because they looked past the main quest lines. They did what I did, and they actually tried to play all of it. Try to go through every dungeon that they made. Try to do every companion quest, etc. So when yeah, people were still like what Torn just said. People were obsessed about our project being better or just succeeding. And unfortunately, a lot of comparisons were thrown around there, and that's obviously not what we were trying to do. We weren't trying to be better than anything. We were just trying to be good at what we were doing in our own lane. This
hmm
wasn't supposed to. This was never about. Well, for Torn and I anyway, it was never about trying to be better than anyone else. It was supposed to be giving back to a game that we love. Just to make that point clear.
right.
Um, Now, the second part of the question, I forget what was
Yeah,
it again?
I yap a lot, so no
It's
problem.
okay, yeah.
Uh, if the frontier is able to actually make a comeback
Ah,
and have it be a
right.
success story, could that help to set a precedent or a precedent of other projects potentially seeing a success story, or specifically, even if Nuevo Mexico doesn't come back and
Mm,
pull a fucking No Man's Sky and be like, oh, now it's amazing.
yeah.
Would it help to lower the temperature, as in like cool everything down? This sort of like negative expectation when it comes to a lot of larger modding projects that
Oh
sort
yeah.
of sprung up when it came to the frontier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the frontier is on its way right now, and of course, a lot to be said. We haven't actually played the new version yet, but it's very promising.
Mhm.
It's very very promising, and yeah, I believe it can succeed. And whenever they announced the rework, what 3 4 years ago, something like that. Um, and I want them to succeed so bad. I want more content to play. If I liked it the first go around, I'm probably gonna like it even better the second time around.
Mhm.
The rework. So yeah, absolutely. I think the project should keep going. There's a husk of a project on the Nexus. It's a modest resource right now. It's called San Fran, and it's yeah, when you walk through that world space and across the Golden Gate Bridge and um, the Chinatown, when you walk through that, you see this husk, and it's very empty. There's no quests. There's one or two NPCs there that are enemies that will attack you. There's some ghouls here and there, but that's about it. And you just see the potential and what could have been. And well, if someone were to redo Nuevo Mexico, it would it would take a lot for me to be a part of it. If anyone approached me and wanted me to be a part of this project, I'd make it very firmly clear that whatever idea that I'm working on, it's going into the game, and you don't get to tell me no.
Mhm.
So at that point, yeah, at this point, if someone did try to take the reins up again, and if they wanted my help, if they wanted my insight, etc., I'm never going to insert myself in any project forcefully. But if I was asked, that's the requirement that I would ask. I say, I point, you build, and that's basically what I would. I would request that level of power. I've made all this stuff, and I want it to be put into light, and I don't want to be told. I don't want it to be shut down again.
To an
Of course.
extent, I would imagine, because that is the downfall of the frontier with the NCR quest line specifically.
Oh, that. Well, first of all, I don't have any radical, ridiculous plagiarizing ideas like that
Right,
heap of
yeah.
garbage. Um, no, I would never. I was about to say, I'm open to opinions and
Yeah.
changing certain things. And if, like I said, what I was writing for was to accommodate a narrative that was already there,
Mhm.
I'll change whatever I got to change. As long as it gets put in, I'm good.
Yeah.
So,
As long as it fits with the rest of
exactly,
the
exactly. I would
experience.
never want something so polarizing and to completely ignore the narrative that they're trying to push or that they're trying to the story that they're trying to tell. No, I want it to fit and be a cohesive experience because then I won't like it. Even if all my stuff made it into the project and it just like you said, perfect example, the NCR dog shit that we had to painfully trudge through to get to the end.
Mhm.
I would never ever ever want that to happen to any other project ever again. So, yeah, it would just take a lot for me to go back into it. That's all. I guess that's the ultimate point there.
Yeah.
It
There
would
there has
take
to
it would
be
take a lot for me to
there has to be
to
an
come back.
actual creative pathway that you can venture down.
Right, right. I have to enjoy it too.
Mhm.
That's the ultimate point. Now I'm at the point where it's like if I'm not going to have fun doing it, then I don't really want to do it at all. Um, and I'm sure that's true for most other people in the creative world space as well. So
One of
yeah,
the one of the
yeah.
things that we talked about in our last interview, not the one that was able to actually go live, but the one we lost. Um, One of the things that you and me, Bishop, talked about
Mm.
was the fact that you have all this like story stuff written out, and more specifically like written out. I pitched the question, why don't more people just like, because we have all these creative types in the
Ah,
Fallout community who like write stories
yes,
and
yes,
stuff like
yes.
that, and it's like, why don't they just like put out books and stuff,
Right,
like just, you know, print it, put it on Amazon, $5, here you go, and then it's out
right.
there.
Or free, or
Yeah,
for
right,
free.
or free, via like message boards and stuff, because that was another thing we talked about, like fanfics and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
the basic
Um,
concept, I wanted to bring that up specifically because I felt that was uh, a good and interesting conversation. A lot of the times I see mostly people who get into the modding community and don't have a whole lot of technical experience, but have a lot of like writing experience. And my whole
yes.
argument was like, well, then just write stuff, put it up on message boards, try to make a book series of it, or like maybe not even a series specifically, but like, you know, make books of it. If we can exist in a timeline where we have, what was it, the what was that My Little Pony book that was set in the wasteland in Fallout, like that whole crossover thing, like that exists and has multiple volumes. If something like, and I'm not intrinsically saying that just because it's My Little Pony it's like bad or any sort of like negative connotations. I'm saying that there are other connotations associated with My Little Pony that other people have, that would make them think lesser of the story just because of that. But if something like that can exist, get multiple volumes, and basically become like a part of the community by proxy or by extension, then whatever sort of story you got cooking up is going to be enjoyed by somebody, like 100%. But
Hmm.
more so specifically, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was a good and interesting point. Another thing that I think is a good and interesting point is that obviously Nuevo Mexico takes place in Mexico, uh, has a lot of all of the inspiration and iconography of Hispanic culture, mixed more so in with that sort of like slight Americana that is Fallout. In Fallout New California, there exists a one of the factions is basically just like this huge raider civilization, effectively. Think Caesar's Legion, but instead of assimilating every faction that they find and they conquer and everything, they make them a part of the larger identity of the Legion. So it's multiple different raider groups. The Vipers, the Botniks, the Black Vultures specifically. The Black Vultures I thought was a very interesting faction because they share a lot of similarities with a lot of what I saw from Nuevo Mexico. They had a lot of like language based adaptation to it. Some of the characters had more so like Arabic or Middle Eastern names. But overall, they spoke a language that they referred to as Espanol, which was, for all intents and purposes, a slightly diluted Spanglish. So they spoke English, but there were a lot of Hispanic words that were just, you know, the words that represented the things that they mean in Spanish, but that was just the word for it.
You
That's
mean
how
like
language
you
works
mean
in
like
general. But the point is,
Chicano?
they had a lot of similarities to the frontier, to the inspiration and to the writing that you and that Bishop and Torn worked on, and it all sort of came from that sort of Americanization of Spanish and more specifically Mexican culture. And it's interesting. Obviously, we're talking about Nuevo Mexico, Mexico, obviously. But it's interesting because there's a lot of, since Fallout is so Western based, and there's already sort of and when I say West, I mean like California and stuff. Since Fallout has a lot of that Western personality to it, obviously a lot of that personality comes from comes from Mexico. But what is often associated with a lot more of the modern things is the sort of tribalization that exists in Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and is seen in a lot of mod projects where there is either a stronger focus on, individual tribes, be they raider or otherwise, and or the religious aspect of a lot of these groups or these factions. Um, what do you guys feel is sort of the essence of that when it comes to Fallout modding specifically? What is sort of this essence that draws a lot more attention to tribalism, to native cultures, to Hispanic cultures, to religious focuses? What is the draw to that? And is that something that is more seen as sort of, or could be seen as, maybe not antithetical to Bethesda's design philosophy, because we don't really see that as much in like Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, um, but more so a different style of achieving the same end goal? Let's start with Bishop.
Well, so what's the fascination with all of it? Well, I think people enjoy absorbing and learning about these things through the Fallout medium. All right, there's always been a fascination with history and what once was and what could have been. So the idea of a tribe and a society come rising out of the ashes and becoming something like the Sorrows, for a perfect example. They they started from nothing. They were a bunch of children that wandered into the canyon and tried to survive. And Randall Clark, obviously overseeing them, he was sort of their god figure in a sense for a few hundred years, actually. And so that's a very compelling and interesting story. Taking something from nothing and making it very moving and interesting. So Fallout 4 had a great way of portraying something like this with the Minutemen. Very interesting historical group of people during the Revolutionary War. Unfortunately, in Fallout 4, I think Preston Garvey butchered the entire idea. That whole character kind of ruined the experience and tarnished the name of the Minutemen. Now, when people hear that, they're going to think of Preston Garvey's fucking face and they're going to cringe. So, uh, and fortunate that's a example of it being bad. Now I know Mr. House is fictional, um, or perhaps I could do a better example than that. Just the Capitol building from Fallout 3. Let's use that as an example. That's really cool. Okay, a lot of people have not seen the inside of the Capitol building. Now, of course, Bethesda could not replicate it one to one. I don't think they would be allowed to do that. But the fact that we got to go into that building and fighting super mutant behemoth aside, going into a historic building like that, that's awesome. Going into Tenpenny Tower, one of the last standing relics in DC, that's actually fairly nice in terms of wasteland standards. That's awesome. Going into the Washington Monument and installing the satellite tower and hearing Three Dog come on the radio, that's awesome. Those were really, really awesome moments. And I remember that's how I felt when I first played them. When one of my close friends showed me when one of my close friends showed me the Washington Monument for the first time. This is before I owned the game. This is before I ever played Fallout ever. When he showed me this, I was awestricken, right? I was, wow, this is crazy. because my elementary school went to Washington, D.C., and I did get to see the Washington Monument up close, as well as a lot of other historical sites. So seeing that in real life and then seeing that in the game, that was a whoa experience for me. Same with the graveyard. Same with the graveyard. Lincoln's Memorial, etc. Like all that stuff I saw in real life. And so seeing it in the game, that was really, really cool. And so there is some real life education that you can get from these games, meaning they can inspire you to want to learn about these certain things. What really happened? Do your own research, and then it's satisfying. And when you look that up and you educate yourself, or have somebody else who is educated in that field educate you, then all of a sudden it gives much more meaning to what you see in these sources of media. So I think that's why, to answer part of that question you asked me, I think that's why people have such a fascination with tribes and indigenous culture, etc. I think that's why, because they can. It's a lot of it's self-contained and it's digestible as well. When you learn about a lot of these things in school, well, most kids don't really want to learn about these things. They more or less have to. So when they're introduced to this kind of thing through a story, something that they can empathize with, they tend to like it more. They experience it at their own pace. They digest it in their own way. So I hope that answers part of the question. I apologize. I don't remember the rest of the question.
Yeah, again, I tend to ramble, but it seems like your basic or your basic uh understanding is more so that it's like it's an it's an easily digestible vehicle for which to tell other stories.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um I mean that again that was basically the crux of my whole rambling. We've seen in a lot of mod projects um a stronger focus on tribal societies when it comes to some of these larger projects like Nuevo Mexico or Fallout California. Obviously, they're both regionally specific, but we see a much more ingrained, maybe not ingrained, but a stronger representation of uh Mexican and Hispanic cultures. Obviously, again, most likely r- because of region and proximity, but the nature of those sort of like indigenous or native populations being represented in modding projects or having a place in modding projects as a vehicle to tell a sort of larger story or a larger point. As I said, the Black Vultures in Fallout New California,
Hmm.
if I'm remembering correctly, originated from a vault where it was sort of like a Tower of Babel sort of situation. There were many different people who spoke many different languages, and they sort of had to figure out how to work it all together. So obviously, there's a blending together of different inspirations for like names, words from many different cultures all over the world. Um, and as a result, we see a shift when it comes to religion. So through these tribal communities, we see not only a simplified, or sorry, not simplified, a more easily digestible means of uh understand, or a more digest an easier vessel to digest bigger topics, which can include many different things such as religion, culture, et cetera, et cetera. um and we see these things in modding projects, and mostly my question, like, what is the fascination with that? What is that? Why are they being utilized? Is it that vehicle sort of mentality where they can be used as like a template, and then upon them be imprinted larger stories? And I believe that you mostly covered that question in the way you described it.
Right.
Yeah.
To simplify the answer, people like good stories, right? Um, if you gave me a history book about the Crusades, I'd be marginally interested and I'd read up on it. I'd read up on it. But if you gave me a story that was based on one man who's journeyed through a crusade, I'd be far more emotionally invested and intrigued.
Mhm.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. People just like good stories. They like to be entertained. They like to they like stories. Yeah, that's that. That's it. They just like stories. And so Torn had a lot of great ideas with the themes of religion and everything, and in the Monte and up in the mountains. That's not my idea. That's not my strong point, but I was intrigued personally. I really liked that. I really like the I'm fascinated with his character Sophia, and having her as a young figurehead that was supposed to be in the project, leading these all these older people, all the generations beyond her and underneath her, looking to her for guidance. That's a recipe for a great story right there. There's a lot of great, great drama to be had and a great story to experience there. Lots of potential. So yeah, people just like good stories, man. People just enjoy hearing good stuff, fun stuff. And that's why Fallout was really successful in the first place. There was a lot of great little stories sprinkled here and there throughout the entire all the games, and on top of the main big story that's in your face most of the time. So I
Torn,
think
what do
that's
you
why.
what's your thought process on this?
I think, I think, I think we do this. We have an obsession with, not obsession, but we look to the tribalism, and there's like more of the representation that we see in like Latino cultures with the desert and with New Vegas, not just because they're here because of the regional things, but I feel like there's a for fans like me of Fallout who are Latino, we have a medium by which we can tell stories that we wouldn't otherwise get to tell. Um, you know, there are some things that I am telling through the writing of Sophia that are personal, that I've experienced, that I've seen other people in my family experience. Um, I've seen people do horrible things to people that they claim to love, and just set up everybody to fail because of it. And uh, been a part of the devastation that comes from that. And those are things that we want to show you. And yeah, sometimes those things are marred and not marred. I shouldn't say that. They're not marred. They're tainted, not tainted, tinged. Tinged is the word.
Mhm.
Tinged with religion, because you know, for us, we're very religious people. A lot of the times, I can count on my hands in the morning how many times I can hear my grandmother or somebody, Padre mi Dios, help me God, with this, it's heavily ingrained in a lot of the things that we do.
Mhm.
Um, and so, you know, I feel like we have an obsession with that because we want to know and experience what others feel. We want to know. We have a we're all kind of hungry for knowledge in a way, right? We all want to experience other people's cultures to feel like we know something about someone else, so we can relate to them later. I think in that way we kind of have this obsession with, or not obsession, but like we have this desire to have more of this kind of our culture, like Latino culture, and it serves itself to be in the like Fallout Nuevo Mexico area, like the Arizona area, the Las Vegas area. We just see that as a way for us to tell these stories. I think that might be why. At least that's why we see more of this focus on some of the religious aspects of this. We in Fallout New Vegas, we have a couple of religious figures asking us some religious questions, and these questions can be personal. I think that we like these kinds of stories because they make us grow. And so we are attracted to these things.
Well
And
said. Yes.
Mhm.
I think that's it.
What are what are you guys like hopeful for in terms of the Fallout community, the gaming community, this, that, or the other thing? What's the thing that, like, you know, you're looking forward to, or you're hopeful for, or you hope that like grows for the better? Um, yeah, the thing like you see off in the distance that is like, the light in the tunnel.
When we look to the future.
Oh yeah. Hey Bishop,
Mm-hmm.
remember how we were talking um, about when we were working on the project? There was a point at which we came to a pause where we thought maybe we should wait for an announcement. And in a way, we were right. We were thinking that when they released Fallout One, or not Fallout, Fallout the TV show, that they were going
Mm.
to release a shadow drop of Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 3 upgraded like they did with Oblivion.
Right.
And we
Yes.
still feel as though this may still happen. In fact, there's rumor that could happen for New Mexico, or not New Mexico, I'm sorry, Fallout New Vegas, an Oblivion styled remake that would drop season 2 of Fallout with Prime. And it would just drop. That
Well,
would
I
breathe
mean,
so much life
yeah.
into I think that would breathe a ton of life into the community immediately. Look at what it's done for the Oblivion community.
Oh,
People are
yeah.
looking to try to
Back
learn
on top.
Unreal, and yeah, immediately back on top. This is how Bethesda wins. But more importantly, this is how you breathe life into a game that's 15 years old.
Well,
And
let's
I have
let's
firm belief
let's
that this is probably going to happen.
let's be honest. Bethesda already won when they remastered Oblivion.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah,
they
without a doubt.
they
Without a
probably
douut.
would have. I've been seeing people say like, oh, they probably would have won even more if it was like a Morrowind remaster, which, like, I don't know. Both those games were kind of before.
I disagree. I don't think so.
Oblivion's the one, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oblivion's the
I
one.
yeah,
don't think Morrowind's great, but I don't think it transcends to as it didn't reach the same highs as Oblivion did.
yeah.
Um,
There are like rumors that, because I think if I'm remembering correctly, there was originally like a leaked document that said that they were going to be remastering Oblivion and Fallout 3. Um, I think
I
especially
have no doubt that they're going to do this now, seeing how successful it is. I have no doubts
no,
now.
yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
it's literally free money.
Yeah.
Let's
It
be honest.
like, here's the money print button.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It's
then again,
yeah.
you brought up an interesting point, um with like with Fallout Prime, as I refer to it, the
Mhm.
Amazon show. Um the Since season 2 is going to go to New Vegas and stuff like that, like you said, it'd be fucking amazing if they did a remaster of Fallout New Vegas in the same vein as they did with Oblivion, and then release that to, drum up additional hype for both the show and the game itself, get everybody back in at the same time. Um, from thinking about it from like a legalese standpoint, I don't feel as if Bethesda would actually be able to do that, because the game was still made by Obsidian. Bethesda just like published it, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, they published it.
Well, they're both owned by Microsoft now.
Yeah, and I
So
know
Big Daddy
that's
Microsoft might say, "I don't care what you think,
yeah,
Bethesda. This
like,
is that we're doing this."
shut up
So
and get in the get along shirt.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
and like, yeah, that's the X factor, that it's like maybe it will be, there is a possibility for a remaster of Fallout New Vegas. I would say that more likely it's probably we're going to be getting a Fallout 3 remaster.
I agree. I
And
agree. That one came first, and that was Bethesda's first integration to the 3D Fallout series, and
yeah, but
they also have they can play the Liam Neeson card, you know? I know it's not a very strong card there, but he was in the game.
he
So
was.
We've
it's
we've wondered he'll look just like him.
Yeah.
yeah,
You
maybe.
know,
Well, I wonder if they'll do that. I wonder if
It
they'll do
would
that.
be, I think, pretty huge. for there to be a Fallout New Vegas remaster. And who knows? Maybe the leak wasn't 100% accurate. Maybe all that they knew is that Bethesda was remastering a game from the Fallout 3 engine. So who's to say? But if me personally, I think it's more likely that we're going to see a Fallout 3 remaster, but a Fallout New Vegas remaster would be huge regardless.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they just recently in 76 had the what is it, New Orleans update to that game where they took everybody down to essentially Las Vegas.
It was
Again, New Vegas.
it was Atlantic City.
Atlantic City. That's right. That's right. And so I feel like they are very aware and chomping at they know we want that. They tease us with the New Vegas armor in that game. They tease us with the Ranger armor. They know what we want.
Yeah.
But I think what they're gonna do is they're gonna do everything else first and save the best for last.
Most likely. Most likely. That'd be what I think would actually be really funny as like probably the biggest troll that they could ever play is make Fallout New Vegas. So like the show is going to be coming out or season 2. That's going to be coming out first. And from some of the screenshots that I've been seeing, I'm trying not to like spoil it too much for myself. But from some of the things I've been seeing, it seems like New Vegas might actually be destroyed or in like a state of like serious disrepair. I think it would be such a troll, but also probably so cool is if after the show concluded, they dropped New Vegas as an expedition in Fallout 76. Right? It'd be so fucked up.
That would really upset me, actually.
It would be right. Isn't that just such like a
right now?
You can just see Todd Howard like
who's laughing now?
Who's laughing now? Chess champion. Yeah.
But then like a year later, he's like, oh yeah, here's Fallout New Vegas remaster. We actually shadow dropped it yesterday, so yeah, have fun.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
I would love that. I would take that. You know,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I have copium.
Yeah. Either way, it would be amazing. It would just be such a troll for the first time to go back would be in Fallout New Vegas. Actually, no, they couldn't really do that because New Vegas, it's the earliest in the timeline. So New Vegas would still be pretty desolate, I think, actually. But maybe that ties in. I don't know. I just think it'd be funny. Like that'd be such a fucked up troll.
Yeah, you want more?
I do feel like the Bethesda is doing that with Amazon Prime. The Fallout Prime show is they're literally wiping the slate clean. With Shady Sands, I think they'll do the same thing with Las Vegas. There are no sacred cows except for the Brotherhood.
Right, and even then, they seem to be tinkering with it a little bit.
They're funnier. They are definitely funnier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they are not. They are not quite. They're not quite what we remember them being.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see where they're gonna go with Fallout Prime and specifically New Vegas and how they continue to develop the NCR. Because I saw something that looked very much like a Ranger style power armor. So it like, oh, maybe something big's happening.
we'll see when we get there.
Yeah.
I'll reserve my opinions for. We'll see if it's done well. Hey, I'll sing its praises.
Right, but
I think I've seen this image. I think I've seen it. It's been leaked before, isn't it?
yeah.
I'm not going to spoil it for you, Bishop.
It's
all right. Yeah.
That's pretty much it. It's it looks like either not like a huge bulky power armor, but kind of a little bit something more akin to what power armor looked like in like Fallout 3 and New Vegas, where it was like plate armor in a sense. But it looks interesting from a technological standpoint. It looks interesting and might be hinting at some stuff.
Okay, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like a it kind of looks like Helldiver armor, like the heavy armor that
A little
Helldivers
bit,
wear.
yeah. A little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of thick and bulky. Yeah.
But what I know for sure is that there's more Fallout content down the road, and Fallout's peak. That controversial opinion. Fallout's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so controversial. Yeah.
Hot take over here.
Yeah. No, I agree. This is why we're all here right now talking about it.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Bishop and Torn, former writers for the Fallout Nuevo Mexico mod project. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow to be notified of future episodes, and consider subscribing to our Patreon for early access to the newest uploads, to help keep episodes ad-free and to improve the quality and frequency of transmission. Until next time, dear listener, I thank you for tuning in, and I will see you all out there in the wasteland.